There are signs of rescue operation to free 12 boys and their soccer coach trapped in a cave in Thailand is either imminent or underway. Ambulances have arrived at the scene and the media has been pushed back from the area. ABC journalist Anne Barker joins us now live. And Anne, is it fair to say that these signs of activity are an indication that the rescue effort there is ramping up?
Absolutely, Miriam. They haven't confirmed to us that the rescue has begun, and it may be that we don't actually hear that it has started or even is progressing until it's finished, until there's news to tell us, because remember, it will take several hours for these boys to come from the cavity 4 kilometres inside the cave back to the entrance. But since very early light this morning, this place has been absolutely frantic with activity. There's been a string of ambulances going in. We could see when we first arrived, the mountain above the cave was shrouded in mist. There has been very heavy rainfall overnight, and that possibly is what has perhaps brought forward this rescue if they are indeed if it is indeed underway. The media are now being evacuated from the area in front of the cave site, about 500 metres up the road from here. We had until about 9 o'clock local time, which is now in fact to get our gear and move down the hill. Clearly that's to make sure that the road is cleared. There are so many media, so many cameras there that it has been blocking a lot of routes. There is only one road into this area. So if and when they bring the first boys out of the cave, if anything has gone wrong, obviously ambulances will be on standby. I did see reports that there were as many as 10, and hopefully, of course, they won't be needed because we have been told the boys are in reasonable health. But clearly it's a precaution in case something goes wrong on that journey through the flooded channels.
And timing, of course, will be critical. You mentioned there ongoing rainfall in the region there overnight. Monitoring of oxygen levels, is there any sense of where that's at?
We've heard nothing at all about that today, but certainly yesterday we were told that was a major fear. The fact that oxygen levels in the last few days, not just in the cavity where the boys have been held or have been trapped, but also in the outer chambers where rescue workers have been storing their gear, putting air tanks and so on, and supplies and food and medicine. The oxygen had dropped at least to 15%, where it should be 21%, and we were told that if it dropped to even 13%, that could become quite dangerous. At the same time, carbon dioxide levels were going up, and that too, if it was to get into the bloodstream, then that can be quite fatal.
And of course the danger of the rescue efforts there underscored by that previous death, but also a separate accident that has happened there on the mountain.
There was an accident last night. Late last night we heard that a car with 4 volunteer rescue workers who are on the mountain above the cave had somehow driven over a cliff or a ravine, and one of them was seriously injured. The 3 others, I gather, had only light or no injuries. Fortunately, no one was killed, but it does show just the difficulty of the terrain here, not just the cave itself, but there are dangers even above. And there have been hundreds of rescue workers swarming over the hillside in the last few days, desperately trying to find any kind of way down or a place where they could drill a shaft into the cave that might allow them to extract the boys and the coach through a hole up to the surface, rather than forcing them to go through the flooded channels inside, where of course they've been learning in the last few days to use scuba tanks and scuba masks. They've been learning how to breathe through those masks underwater. Just yesterday we were told they weren't ready, they weren't clearly confident enough to try a rescue already, and so they were taking advantage of the relatively dry weather and putting the rescue off in the hope that they could just give the boys more time to familiarise themselves with scuba diving gear and build the confidence they will need to embark on that 4-kilometre underground journey led by some of the world's best cave divers.
Have authorities there been able to give any indication of how long a rescue operation might in fact take, given the complexity of the conditions there and the number of people who they need to rescue from that cave?
We've had no more detail in the last day or so of just how many hours it might take, but certainly we have been told it's a 12-hour round trip, even for an experienced diver. 5 or 6 hours in, 5 or 6 hours back, with several points along the way where there's enough air pockets and staging posts where they can refuel their tanks. Originally the plan was perhaps to bring one of the strongest or oldest boys out first and then see how that went before they took the others. But with heavy rains falling overnight and forecast for later today, the weather is definitely deteriorating. It's quite possible that they will decide they need to bring them out as one group, but stagger them over time. So that would take, you would presume, at least 6 hours from beginning to end. But because these are boys as young as 11 who have only learnt scuba diving in the last week or so, then I imagine it could take much longer than that.
Keeping us up to date there with all the details, our reporter Anne Barker at Chiang Rai in Thailand.